Hello again. We'll continue with the course, An Introduction to Data Science for Geographers. This is the second lesson where we'll continue talking about base R programming, programs and functions that you'll use day to day. We've shown last week, or we've practiced on using some of the common commands, such as a function called install.packages, where you can install additional packages to expand upon the base R packages that come installed by default. Today, we'll discuss additional commands and functions that you will use day to day when using R, which will greatly expand your ability to use R in various analysis that you'll conduct. The first command is a pretty simple command. It's called print. This command basically outputs any values you give it or any vector, we'll discuss that a bit later, onto the screen. And note that there's a difference between the upper and lower examples in syntax. This is because in the upper syntax, we're using a string variable or a character variable. And in the bottom part, we're using a numeric variable. We will learn about all these things as the course progresses. Note that when we use a string variable, we have to quote whatever is printed within these quotes. Let's see an example if we move over to RStudio. This is our working space. If I print the command print and mark the whole command, I can either use the run button to run it. And as you can see, it gives or it outputs in the terminal the command. So it shows me hello world. Similarly, I can use the print command to do an arithmetic calculation. So 2 plus 2. And notice that I'm going to get an answer that equates to 4. So it solves the arithmetic calculation. To run commands, as I said, you can either mark them and press the run command, or you can use Control Enter or Command Enter if you're on a Mac to run the command via a keyboard shortcut. So that's the print command. Let's talk about comments. I don't know how experienced you people are with using comments in other programming languages, but in R it's quite similar. So programmers use comments to leave notes to themselves, in addition when they share the data to other people, or they share the scripts rather to other people that read their scripts. And good comments add a lot of valuable information that's not always obvious. For example, if you want to date the particular section of code, if you want to share some information about how you ran this code or why you wrote this code this way, or just leave instructions on how the code is built, a comment is a fantastic way of doing so. In R, a comment starts with a hash sign, okay? A hash sign that's not inside a string begins a comment in R. You can use also comments to organize your code or to hide chunks of code you don't want or you don't want to use. And of course, when you do the exercises today and in other lessons that we have, it's very good to leave your own comments to allow you to go back and then identify what you did. The syntax is quite simple. It starts with a hashtag or a hash sign, and then everything behind that hash sign, R will ignore, meaning that when R evaluates your code or evaluates the script, it will just ignore the additional comments. So all the characters after are going to be ignored. Let's look at an example. If we go back to RStudio, you can see that here, I can write R will ignore everything. If I write, this is a sentence, this is not going to be ignored, and this is going to give me a syntax error. By using RStudio, which is a R IDE, we've discussed what an IDE is last week, we can see it's going to give an error if we try to evaluate or run this section. By using a comment, R knows how to ignore this section, and thus will not evaluate and will not give you any coding errors. You can also type a comment in the same line after the statement or expression. So it doesn't have to necessarily start at the beginning of the line, even though it's good coding practices to do so. But if you really need to, by assigning it after the function or the code that you've just written, it will also ignore that section and not evaluate it. So that's something to remember. You can always comment multiple lines. So it doesn't have to be one line. It could be every second, third, fourth, or a continuous section by, again, assigning the comment to the beginning of the line. So anything is possible in terms of commenting sections. That's quite easy to do. Let me just quickly say something about using blank lines. A line that contains only blank spaces or white spaces, possibly with a comment, is known as a blank line. And programmers and programs such as R and Python usually ignore it. So going back to R, all of this is going to get ignored, whether it's a comment, whether it's a free section. I would urge you not to add additional blank lines or white spaces. So it could be an empty line or a space unless you really need to, because that is just bad coding practices. You should only use spaces or empty lines, in areas or in special programming languages where it's needed. So in general, try to avoid using blank lines and white spaces. That's a general coding practice.